Hello and welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Wend Yi.
And I'm Wend Yi.
And today we have Port Royale, the dice game.
This is a follow-up game from Alexander Pfister, the designer of the original Port Royale, which was a little card game. Pegasus did the Port Royale big box in the same size box, and so this is one of those, the dice games that's bigger than the original. Well,
I also think it takes up more table space. Well,
it does take up more table space, yeah. This is one of those, I don't know who was asking for this, but I was interested in it. We were both interested in it. So, let's show you how it plays. Then we'll give you our thoughts. Here's Port Royale, the dice game, on the table here. This is going to be the individual player sheets. Every player will have one of these. Chapter 1 on the front, Chapter 2 on the back with a slightly different map, and then 3 and 4 in a different booklet over here. So you can see there's different scoring objectives, different penalties, and such. So every player has a sheet and a pen that they're working on. The game provides these felt-tipped pens, which actually are really nice, don't bleed through. That's a great production point on their side. Here's the central area here. This is primarily a push your luck game where players are racing to 20 points. There's a sudden death win condition that I will talk about separately. So how does the game start off? Well, the active player will roll the dice, and then you will be placing out the appropriate item here onto the coordinate that was rolled. So orange B, you'll notice, is this ship, whereas over here, orange E is a wheel, a steering wheel. If players are trying to continue to roll dice until they have a certain number out there, and then they'll be picking an action to do from here. Ships are going to allow players to continue to sail around the board, crossing off more spaces with X's, either in the sea lanes to get to islands and treasure, or off of the islands they're connected to. And once an island is filled in, they will get the points shown on there, the red numbers here, as well as unlocking special abilities. So as the active player continues to roll, they'll be placing these ships and wheels out here, and at some point they'll choose to stop. Based on the number of items on the board when the player stops, they will draft an action item. And so in this case, with 3 or 4 items, if they chose to stop now, they would get to pick one thing off of here, like maybe the orange ship, which would allow them to fill in 2 X's on the board, sea or island side, as they wished. The next player clockwise gets to pick one of these 2 things. So the player could pick this wheel to unlock a special ability, and the third player could choose to use this ship, which gives 4 check marks or 4 X's. However, you notice it comes with these skull and crossbones, which, as you get more of those, give you negative points. Once everyone is done drafting, the dice pass to the next player. They become the new active player and continue this process. If ever you roll in a way where you cannot place a ship, you will bust. So if I rolled this, for example, orange C, since the orange ship is already an orange B, that would be a bust. When a player busts, they will get 2 X marks that they get to place out, and they'll cross off 1 space on the skull and crossbones track. The other players will get to, in clockwise order, draft the items off of here and take the actions. Here's a close-up of the player sheet so you can see as players draft different things like the wheels. The orange wheel allows players to have swords which can repel bad die rolls. So if this were to cause me to bust, if I had 4 swords, I could actually repel this and then choose to stop or to re-roll and keep going. Blue wheels are instant re-rolls where you have to re-roll and take the new result. The yellow wheels allow you to increase the number of yellow X's that you'll get as you draft a yellow ship. Reds allow you to add X's if you have at least 4 items on the main board. And then greens are going to be just simply victory points. When you take ships, you will sail that number of spaces as shown, and so you could continue to move over towards this island here, for example. And then if you were able to draft more ships and get more movement, you could fill in islands, and you'll get these upgrades here. The red number is the number of points that you'll have, so you'll move forward on the points track. And then, in this case, I would have the Jester ability. So when I bust, I would get an extra X. Or if I filled in this Admiral slot, I have a permanent ability that as there are 4 or more items on the main board, when I draft, I get an extra X that I get to do. So as I sail around, if I come to these areas, I have to be using an orange ship movement, for example, to cross this space off. And then later to have to use a red ship movement to be able to cross this space off, so on and so forth. Treasures are things that players are racing to, so as they get there, they will get the points here, and nobody else will be able to get those. The different islands here have different abilities and more points on them. Now, as I mentioned, the game either ends when a player hits 20 points or on a sudden death condition. So, as players reach these islands on the score track, they're eligible to win the game if they meet this condition. So, the purple player is the active player right now. They will win immediately if they're able to get 7 items in total on the board during their turn. So, they might continue to roll. And they have this here, so they would have busted. Or if they were able to put out more items onto the board here, then if they hit 7, they instantly win the game. As you progress to this island, 6 items will instantly win you the game, and then on this part of the score track, 5 items will do it. Each map will have a different path, different array of islands, and different little requirements. So, for example, on map 1, we kind of talked about most of those features. On map 2, these spaces with the number 3 and 4 require you to spend 3 or 4 movement at once just to fill in that one spot. On map 3, it introduces these quests, where as you've met these conditions, have crossed off 5 islands, you can then come over here and cross off this quest space in order to earn 2 points if you're the first person to do it, 1 point if you're the second. And then map 4 as well has more quests and more differences on there, kind of mixes all of the elements from the previous 3 maps together.
Or one thing that I like about this is that it has multiple maps and they feel different.
That's true,
They
out
have
the
different
gate.
effects, yeah.
Yeah, out the gate. You can kind of play them progressively, I suppose. But also, if you've played a roll and ride game before, you could do map number 3. It's not going to be that hard.
Sure, yeah, you don't need to start with number 1. It's not like super basic.
Right, but at the same time, you could play map number 1. There's nothing wrong with it. So I like, there's 4 useful maps.
Mm-hmm. I think that's clever. I also really like just the way that the push your luck dice work. Like the previous game, like whatever the original game was push your luck, and I appreciate that they continued with that push your luck feel.
And it's so funny because when I was playing this for the first time, I was playing with a group of people who had never played the original Port Royale. And I was like, man, it's so weird how different this game feels. Except for this part here, and I was explaining how the push your luck works. And they're like, that sounds like the same game. I was like, no, but it's so different. Well, because, like, you have these powers here. Actually, the powers are in the original game, too. And every time I kept being like, it's so weird. It feels so different from the original card game.
Yeah.
But the push your luck part of it is the same type of idea.
I think it's visually so different.
That's part of it,
I think that that's a big part because you've got this grid that you're placing boats and little helm wheels, whatever you call them, on it. And that just feels so different than, like, flipping over a card.
Yeah.
That has helms on it.
It's a different visceral experience. So I do love push your luck games where you're flipping over that card and be like, I don't want to see the same thing lest I bust. And with this one, it's almost less readily apparent when you bust because you roll the dice and you have to look at the things. And one of my complaints is I wish that the die that determined the color wasn't just a splotch of a color.
Yeah.
It'd be really easy to just put orange around in the splotch, something like that, to make it more discernible immediately. Mm-hmm. Because that's part of the joy of push your luck is being like, no! Instead of like, hold on, let me...
Well, it's one of those things so each one of the dice has the little swords on them that you can fight and you can say, hey, I don't want this roll to actually have happened. I fought it off. But every time that I would roll a die and tell you where to put the ship, I would say the stupid number. I would be like, E2. Wait. There's two spots. It's blue and it's red. It's both 2. It'd be like...
Yes.
I just always wanted to say the number.
The design on the dice is a little bit odd, but it's mostly good, and it becomes very quick. What I tend to do is that when I'm playing with people, they just roll, and I'm putting the stuff out there, because I've learned to kind of understand the dice quickly, and it speeds the game along to just have someone throw something out there, throw the next piece out. You just have that person keep rolling as much as they want.
Yeah, I think so.
Rather than each person be like, okay, what are the coordinates? Next? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think so. The other thing that I think is very clever about this is that I get to do stuff on your turn, and you get to do stuff on my turn. And there's compensation even when you bust.
Yes.
So I think those 3 things make it feel like the game is constantly moving. I get frustrated. So I like push your luck games quite a bit, but I do get frustrated when you have those games where you're like, you do something, you do something, you do something, you do something. I took my turn and I busted right away, and now I have to wait for the whole other round before I get another turn, and I busted again, because that can just happen.
Right.
But in this, you always get those 2 extra X's, and in fact, you can bump up your busting ability.
Yeah.
So you can get like super bust awesomeness. You're like, well, I failed. I do lose points, but also I get to mark off 3 or 4 X's. So it's not that bad.
Sometimes you're like, oh, it's better for me to bust because I've leveled that up.
So much, right?
Yeah. So I do like that, and like you said, being able to take turns on other players' turns is great. For that reason, I wouldn't play this with 5 players because it's less likely there's going to be stuff on the board, right? If I'm player number 5 and we have to go around the table,
True.
most of the stuff's going to be taken off. So I'm going to be out of the game more often, but the game does a good job of engaging you still as you're like, maybe you want to roll dice more and throw more things on this so I have more to pick from. So that you have more to pick from.
That's true, because even if you get more on the board, the player who's rolling the dice is pulling more off the board as well.
Yes.
So it is just going to always have that 2 to 3 kind of things left over.
So I think the push your luck system in this works so well because of what you're just mentioning here, right? You hit a certain threshold as you're putting stuff out more, you're helping the other players. But at some point, you start to be able to draft more actions immediately, and that drives the push. That really drives you to roll the die and keep going.
Well, and then you have those extra abilities that let you get more of those crosses if you go over 4.
Right, exactly.
Hit 4 or more.
Yeah. So you have enough reason and motivation to keep going, which is so important in a game like this. And the other thing is that the grid, even though it's an odd grid compared to just the idea of pushing your luck by flipping cards, the grid gives you a nice visualization because if you have a red ship out here, you know that many spaces will bust. And so it's like visually, mathematically apparent. How much have you pushed your luck? When you only have 1 ship space left and maybe the little wheels, you're like, that's not a lot of squares out of all these squares.
It's so funny because I remember you saying that as you were teaching me the game, and at first I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. I have no idea. But I do get now that I've played it a few times, it is that visual representation. Because they very specifically make the wheel spaces darker.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, well, I know red has a boat, black has a boat. That's gone.
Yeah, almost half your choices.
Gone, yeah.
Yeah, almost half your choices in 2 or 3 ships. You're like, oh. So yeah, the ship wheels is fun because that gives you more feeling of invincibility.
Yeah.
To be like, I can keep pushing my luck. Now we've talked a lot about the push your luck part. How do you feel about the actual roll and write part of it, which is kind of the newest part of this game?
Sure, the maps themselves, I think that they're clever. I like that the islands are, you can go anywhere, so it feels very open. I don't feel like we're on the same path. So it feels nice and open, and then you can really lean into whatever type of engine building you want to do. Do I want to mitigate my dice rolls so I can get those bigger dice rolls so that I can have re-rolls or I can have more swords? Do I want to lean into the failing so that I can fail a whole bunch and it doesn't matter, I can push my luck because I'm going to get 4 X's anyways, so it doesn't matter.
Good failing.
You know what I mean? So I like that there's those different things, and plus the maps feel different. There's the stuff that you're racing towards with the treasure. So I think they're clever.
There's enough stuff that's always available. There's enough stuff that is a race towards it, so first come, first serve, that I think it makes it good. And for that reason, along with the drafting, I would probably max out playing this with 3 players normally. 4 players, I don't know if that would add very much, right? It's a lot of fun. I like moving around the maps. It feels like you're progressing and you're being productive. I think earlier the way you put it was the game always feels like it's moving forward.
It is, yeah. It definitely is.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the end, Chris?
So there's 2 main complaints that I have.
Okay.
Right, 2 main ones. We talked about some of the little issues with the dice, the reading the dice, all that stuff. But my main 2 biggest issues, first is the time length of the game, where it's not too long if someone is kind of facilitating the game. If people are rolling the dice, thinking about it, putting the token out, thinking about it, okay, I'm going to stop now, I'll take my thing and start doing my stuff. And if the next person isn't drafting an action right away, right, that's just wasted time. As soon as a person picks off the yellow ship and they start doing stuff, the next person just take the orange ship and start it. The next person, take the blue wheel, got it, right? There's this tendency to kind of want to watch what other people are doing, and that's wasted time. The box here says 20 to 50 minutes, and it's probably, if you're doing that, if you're kind of like stopping and like watching what people do, then being like, oh.
Appreciating each turn.
Yeah, which thing do I want to take? Then it's going to go past an hour, which this game shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
Yeah.
This is a lighter game. With that, the sitting and watching people and taking time with the dice, also with those swords, you can have all that extra re-rolling going on and deciding. And so as you get built up, it's really cool that you have the opportunity to, re-roll and not bust as much and have cool manipulation that you can do with the dice. But at the same time, that just takes more time to get sometimes the exact same result that you were going to have before.
It's true. Yeah. So I think if someone's kind of facilitating the game, like as soon as okay, you active player take two things, you just point at the next person. Which one are you taking? Let them know. You just keep going. It keeps it breezy. The second complaint I have though is that end game. So thank you for letting me kind of go on that big detour.
Made it back to the end.
The sudden death ending feels odd. I think it's smart mechanically, but it always feels odd. I'm not sure how you feel about that.
It's interesting because I played both, right? Where someone sudden death won and someone didn't. They made it to the 20 points. And I feel like they ended right around the same time anyways. Mm-hmm. So the sudden death, I think what feels odd about it is that you're not doing anything on your board. You're not getting to cross off any X's. You're not getting any treasure. You're not completing any islands. You're not getting any points. You're just like, bam, I rolled my 5 or 6 or 7 dice and it's done. So it's a little anticlimactic in that way because you didn't get to do like a really clever finish. Like it doesn't feel clever. Mm-hmm. But I think that it adds good pressure. That way people don't just dawdle. I think it makes the game get to an end.
And that's the thing is I feel like mechanically it's smart, especially as people are kind of further behind on the track, but far enough, they've earned enough points. They want to push it to 7 items on the board, and they can win directly from that. That's exciting. What lacks excitement is when you're at 17 points, you're close to winning anyway, and you only need to get 5 things on the board. If you've mitigated, if you've built up well enough, that's really easy to do, and everyone just kind of looks at you and goes, oh, did you win? Yeah, I did. It doesn't feel like I won. It was like, yeah, I won. And the justification for it, I assume, is that if you're at 17 points and you had a very successful roll, you're probably about to cross the point threshold this turn or next turn anyway. Mm-hmm. And so rather than having it kind of play out slowly, it just kind of says, hey, yeah, that's a win condition.
I think it speeds up the end in that way, but I think it also because this is a game where, especially at the beginning, you're like, I gain a couple points, I lose a couple points. I gain a couple points, I lose a couple points. It prevents someone just sitting there at the end toying with everybody while everyone else is trying to catch up.
That's true.
So I think it just it's like definitive, like, end. Be done.
I like it when someone is further back and able to surprise win because that feels earned. But where you're in the front, you're like, all right, I did it. Yeah. It feels less earned. So all of that together, a lot of great things about this game and some complaints. Score-wise, I'm gonna come in first, right? Okay. Because I wonder if you're higher than me. I'm coming in at a 7.5 for this one because I like this game. Spoilers. I like this game a lot. I have fun with it. The push your luck is familiar. It feels like it has so many of the systems of the card game that I like, and then it puts it into this kind of map format where you explore around and discovering islands, getting the majorities, not majority, but like crossing them off. It feels so good and satisfying. And so the end game is a little bit odd. It would be, I think, higher if they had made the end game more exciting consistently, but it's still a very solid roll and write.
All right, I'm just going to copy and paste what you said into what I'm saying right now.
Same score?
Done. Same score, yeah. I'm giving this a 7.5. I quite enjoyed it. The Point Royale, like their basic Port Royale game, I think is fun push your luck. I like that this adds those elements, like what you said. The roll and write part for me, I enjoy that it's so much engine building and you can lean, like you have to lean into different things because the game's going to end before you can do everything. And I really appreciate that side of it. It's interesting because it is a roll and write game that doesn't have a lot of cascading. Mm-hmm. There's a couple moments where you're like, oh, I can get extra check marks and boom, I have a big turn where I have 8 check marks. I have 12 check marks I can put out. Or you can have those big turns. But they're very, very, very few and far between. In fact, you could have a whole game with nothing like that and still be successful. And so that's just interesting to me that often when I think of roll and write games, I think of like those big cascading moments where I do this thing that lets me do this thing that lets me do this thing. This doesn't have that, and that's not a bad thing. It just is a thing that it is lacking in a little bit of ways. But I enjoy it. I think it's a solid like 7.5 right there for me.
Yeah, but it gives you enough engine building that you don't need the cascading.
I don't need it.
You're just getting better over the course of the game,
Yeah.
right? So there you go, Port Royal, the dice game, getting a 7.5 high score, so a seal of approval from us here at the Dice Tower. Till next time, my name's Chris Yi.
I'm Wend Yi.
Have fun rolling them bones.
Yo ho, a pirate's life for me.
You sound so piratey. Roll them bones.
Hey folks, thanks for watching another one of our videos. If you like our videos, if you like our channel, you would love to game with us at one of our conventions. Check out Dice Tower Cruise, Dice Tower East, and Dice Tower West. Fantastic conventions where we play games with wonderful people, a humongous library, and lots of other events and stuff. Also, don't forget to check out our channel, like and subscribe. I'm Tom Bassel.